August 31st, 1997. The world wakes up to devastating news. Princess Diana, the most photographed woman on the planet, is dead. Alongside her in that twisted wreckage in a Paris tunnel is Dodi Fayed, a name that immediately floods every headline. The media tells us this was her great love, the man she was planning to marry, possibly carrying his child. Magazines print their photos kissing on yachts. Television broadcasts show them holding hands in the Mediterranean sun. The narrative is set in stone, Diana and Dodi, a tragic modern romance cut short. But what if I told you that almost everything you've been told about Diana's final summer was a carefully orchestrated illusion? What if the man she was really desperately, completely in love with wasn't the playboy billionaire's son splashed across every tabloid, but a quiet, unassuming heart surgeon from Pakistan who most of the world had never even heard of? What if the greatest love story of the 20th century's most famous woman was hidden in plain sight, while the cameras were pointed somewhere else entirely? This isn't speculation. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is the untold truth about Princess Diana and the man she called Mr. Wonderful, Dr. Hasnat Khan. And the real story is far more heartbreaking, far more complex, and far more human than anything the tabloids ever printed. Because while the world watched Diana play out a romance with Dodi Fayed in the final weeks of her life, her heart belonged to someone else entirely. Someone who valued his privacy more than fame. Someone who wanted nothing to do with the spotlight that followed her everywhere. Someone who represented everything Diana desperately wanted but could never truly have. A normal life. Let me take you back to September 1st, 1995. It's an ordinary day at the Royal Brompton Hospital in London. Dr. Hasnat Khan, a 36-year-old cardiac surgeon, is in the middle of his grueling work schedule, 90-hour weeks, life-or-death surgeries, the kind of relentless pressure that leaves most people wanting nothing more than sleep when they finally get home. He's just performed a triple bypass surgery on a man named Joseph Toffolo, and now there's a complication. The patient is hemorrhaging. Hasnat needs to rush him back to the operating room immediately. He walks into the waiting room to tell Joseph's wife, Unak, a healer and acupuncturist, that her husband needs emergency surgery. Unak introduces him to the visitor, who arrived that morning to support her. "This is Princess Diana," she says. Hasnat nods perfunctorily, barely registers who she is, and rushes out to save his patient's life. That's it. No double take. No stammering. No recognition of the fact that he just met the most famous woman in the world. Do you understand how extraordinary that moment was? Diana had spent her entire adult life being instantly recognized, being fawned over, being treated differently by absolutely everyone she encountered. And here was a man who looked at her, nodded, and went about his business because he had more important things to do, like saving someone's life. Unak later wrote that it was doubtful Diana had ever made less an impression on someone in her entire adult life. But here's the thing that made Diana's heart skip. As Hasnat walked away, his surgical shoes squeaked against the hospital floor. And Diana, ever observant, noticed something written on those shoes. His name, Hasnat Khan. She waited exactly 2 beats to make sure he was gone, then turned to her friend and said, "Unak, is he drop-dead gorgeous?" And his name is Hasnat Khan. It's written on his shoes. At that moment, something shifted in Diana's world. She had been officially separated from Prince Charles since 1992. By 1995, she was living alone in Kensington Palace, cycling through friends, changing her cell phone number every 6 months to avoid being listened to by the Secret Service or the tabloids. She had affairs with James Hewitt, the riding instructor. She had complicated relationships with art dealer Oliver Hoare, rugby star Will Carling. Each relationship played out under the ruthless glare of the British tabloids, dissected and judged, and turned into fodder for headlines. Each man eventually buckled under the pressure of being with someone so impossibly famous. Each relationship ended with Diana feeling more alone, more misunderstood, more desperate for something real. And then she met a man who literally didn't care who she was. A man who had more important things to worry about than her title or her fame. A man dedicated to saving lives, not chasing celebrity. Diana returned to hospital every single day during Joseph Toffolo's 3-week stay. Every single day. Was she concerned about Joseph? Absolutely. But she was also positioning herself to run into Hasnat Khan. She was creating opportunities for their paths to cross. And it worked. About 2 weeks after their first meeting, Diana found herself alone with Hasnat in a hospital elevator. Their eyes locked. The chemistry was instant, undeniable. She went home and told her energy healer, Simone Simmons, "I think I've met my Mr. Wonderful." She described his dark brown velvet eyes that you could just sink into. She couldn't stop talking about him. This wasn't the giddy infatuation of a teenager or the calculated romance of someone playing to cameras. This was something Diana herself said she'd never experienced before. She later told one of her friends, very near the end of her life, she said to one of her friends, "I'm no longer lonely. I know what love is now." Think about that for a moment. Diana, Princess of Wales, married in the wedding of the century, mother of 2 princes, humanitarian icon, at 36 years old. She was only just discovering what real love felt like. Hasnat began showing up late at the hospital, often after his exhausting shifts, and Diana would be there, sometimes in disguise, sometimes sneaking in through back entrances. She started observing his surgeries, scrubbing in and watching him work with laser focus as he literally held people's hearts in his hands. Diana was excited by the fact that he actually held other people's lives in his hands. Author Chris Anderson noted that what he did was literally a matter of life and death. This wasn't some shallow attraction. Diana was drawn to his purpose, his skill, his complete dedication to something bigger than himself. Their first official date happened in mid-September 1995. Hasnat needed to pick up some books from his aunt and uncle's house in Stratford-upon-Avon. Somewhat impulsively, he invited Diana to come with him. "I did not think for 1 minute that she would say yes," he later recalled in his police statement after Diana's death, "but I asked her if she would like to come with me. I was very surprised when she said she would." They drove together, Princess Diana and this surgeon she'd known for 2 weeks, to Stratford-upon-Avon. She met his Aunt Jane and Uncle Omar. They had dinner. They drove back to London. Hasnat later said, "After this, our friendship turned into a relationship." What followed was the most intense, secretive, and meaningful relationship of Diana's life. For 2 years, from September 1995 to July 1997, Diana and Hasnat conducted a love affair so covert that even seasoned royal reporters weren't entirely sure what was happening. And this is where the story gets fascinating, because keeping this relationship secret required extraordinary measures. Diana would wear dark wigs and sunglasses when visiting Hasnat's 1-bedroom apartment in Chelsea. Her butler, Paul Burrell, described hiding Hasnat in the trunk of his car to sneak him into Kensington Palace. When Diana called Hasnat at the hospital, she left messages under fake names. Her favorite was Dr. Armani. They spent most of their time at Kensington Palace, ordering takeout, with Diana setting out expensive ashtrays from Thomas Good and Hermes because Hasnat smoked. Paul Burrell wrote about finding ash scattered on top of Kentucky Fried Chicken boxes in the dustbin. Think about that image for a second. Princess Diana, who never smoked, who obsessed about her weight and her appearance, setting out ashtrays for her surgeon boyfriend and eating fried chicken with him in her palace. When they ventured out, they went to jazz clubs in Soho, standing in line like normal couples. Diana actually called Simone Simmons from the queue one night and said, "You meet such interesting people queuing." She was genuinely thrilled by the experience of waiting in line because she had literally never done it before. On another occasion, Diana asked if she could order drinks at a pub because she had never done so before. Hasnat later told police. She really enjoyed the experience and chatted away happily to the barman. This is what Diana craved. Not the glamour, not the yachts, not the jewelry, but the simple, ordinary experiences that made her feel human instead of like a princess trapped in a gilded cage. But as much as Diana tried to embrace normalcy, she could never truly escape who she was. And this is where the relationship began to show cracks. Hasnat Khan was a serious man. He worked 90-hour weeks. When he wasn't working, he wanted to sleep. He liked Guinness and jazz. He wore button-down shirts that stretched over a small paunch. He didn't ride horses or hunt or attend galas. His entire world was a hospital, his patients, his work. And while Diana admired his dedication, she also struggled with it. She would call him multiple times while he was in surgery, leaving increasingly frantic messages. Hospital administrators started getting worried about security issues created by her frequent visits. The press attention that inevitably followed Diana wherever she went was becoming a problem. And then there was a fundamental impossibility of their situation. Hasnat Khan came from a very conservative, upper-middle-class Muslim family in Jhelum, Pakistan. His family believed strongly in arranged marriages. A Western, divorced, non-Muslim woman would never get his parents' approval, especially not the Princess of Wales, one of the most famous women on the planet, mother of the future King of England. They were still the belief that he was going to marry a girl of their choice. Journalist Shekhar Bhatia, who interviewed Hasnat, explained, in his father's words, he will marry no one, nowhere, without my permission. But Diana didn't give up. She couldn't, because for the first time in her life, she was experiencing real love. Not the arranged fairy tale marriage with Charles, not the strategic affairs that followed, but genuine mutual affection. She threw herself into understanding Hasnat's culture. She wrote letters to his grandmother, Nani Appa, sending them through family members who could translate. She wore traditional Pakistani clothing to events. In July 1996, she attended a fundraiser for Imran Khan's cancer hospital at the Dorchester Hotel dressed in an ivory, pearl-studded shalwar kameez gifted to her by Imran's wife, Jemima Khan. This wasn't a costume to Diana. This was her try to show Hasnat's family that she respected their traditions, that she could adapt, that she could be part of their world. She even flew to Pakistan twice in 1996 and 1997, ostensibly to help fundraise for Imran Khan's hospital, but really to meet Hasnat's family and discuss marriage. Jemima Khan, who became Diana's friend and confidant, told reporters, Diana was madly in love with Hasnat Khan and wanted to marry him, even if that meant living in Pakistan. And that's one of the reasons why we became friends. Stop and think about that. Diana was willing to move to Pakistan. Diana, Princess of Wales, who could have had anyone in the world, was willing to leave England, leave proximity to her sons, leave everything familiar, just to be with this man. On one of her trips to Lahore, Diana insisted on driving herself with Imran's sisters to Hasnat's family home to avoid press attention. 10 minutes into the drive, they got stuck in a traffic jam. Sitting there in the middle of Lahore, no bodyguards, no security. With the mother of the future King of England, Imran's sister Lima suddenly realized, are we mad? We are like sitting ducks. If anything happens, this will create an international incident. But Diana was entirely unflappable. When people started recognizing her and pointing, she simply rolled down her window, smiled, and waved. At the family home, the power went out in the sweltering heat. Everyone gathered in the garden. Diana knew the address by heart. She had memorized it. When Imran's sisters felt it was time to leave, Diana wanted to stay longer. She was trying so hard to win them over, to prove she could be part of this family, to show that her love for Hasnat transcended cultural boundaries. That evening, Diana spoke with Imran Khan and asked him to intervene, to speak to Hasnat on her behalf, to convince him that their love could work. Imran agreed, but he never got the chance. Diana died before he made it back to London. Throughout 1996 and into 1997, Diana and Hasnat's relationship was turbulent. They had epic fights, lots of shouting and slamming of doors. According to friends, even teenage Prince William could see his mother was on an emotional roller coaster. She was deliriously happy one moment, weeping uncontrollably the next, author Chris Anderson noted. The fundamental problem was this. Diana thrived in the spotlight, but Hasnat hated public attention. When news of their relationship finally broke in November 1995, after Diana, as a joke, sent a large flower arrangement to Hasnat at the hospital with no card, the press went into overdrive. They tracked down his old girlfriends, visited his medical school, contacted retired professors. Hasnat started receiving death threats in the mail, including a cutout picture of himself with a noose around his neck. I did not want to have to look over my shoulder all the time, he later said. And then there was Diana's complicated relationship with the media itself. As much as she resented the press intrusion into her life, she also needed them. She used them. When the Sunday Mirror broke the story about her relationship with Hasnat, while she was in Sydney in November 1995. Diana called journalist Richard Kay, one of her favorite reporters, and assured him the story was bullshit. Kay quoted her as telling friends the story had given her a lot of laughs, and that "we are laughing ourselves silly over this." This public denial hurt Hasnat deeply. Yes, he wanted privacy, but having the woman he loved publicly deny their relationship confirmed his worst fears, that any life with Diana would require him to live a lie, or be consumed by media attention. They talked about marriage constantly. Diana told friends she wanted to have a daughter with Hasnat. She introduced him to her sons. She even asked Paul Burrell to find someone who could discreetly marry them. When Hasnat found out, he was incredulous. "Do you honestly think you can just bring a priest here and get married?" He later told police investigating her death, "I thought it was a ridiculous idea." They discussed moving to Pakistan, to South Africa where Diana's brother was living, to Australia where Hasnat had worked before. But these ideas were fundamentally unrealistic. Diana had 2 sons in school in England. She had royal obligations. She couldn't just disappear to another country, no matter how much she wanted to. Hasnat was equally torn. He loved Diana. Everyone who knew them confirms this. But he was honest about his concerns. "My main concern about us getting married was that my life would be hell because of who she was," he told police. "I knew I would not be able to live a normal life, and if we ever had children together, I would not be able to take them anywhere or do normal things with them." He was also aware of the racist backlash that would likely come. Author Chris Anderson noted, "The British public would probably turn on her for making a Muslim the stepfather of their future king." It's not hard to imagine the racist headlines in the British tabloids. It might have evolved into quite an ugly scene. And so, by the summer of 1997, their relationship was an impasse. They loved each other deeply, but neither could see a path forward. Diana was frustrated that Hasnat wouldn't commit. Hasnat was terrified of what committing to her would mean for his life. And then, in early July 1997, Diana accepted an invitation from Mohammed Al Fayed to spend a week at his villa in St. Tropez. It seemed like an innocent vacation, a chance for Diana and her sons to enjoy some privacy and security at Al Fayed's luxurious estate. On July 10th, the night before Diana left for St. Tropez, Hasnat stayed with her at Kensington Palace. Everything seemed fine between them, but after a few days in St. Tropez, Hasnat noticed something had changed. "After a few days, I felt something was wrong," he told police. Her mobile kept going on to answer phone. Diana was being photographed by paparazzi, jet skiing off the beach. Mohammed Al Fayed called his son Dodi, who was in Paris with his fiancée, model Kelly Fisher, and asked him to come help entertain Diana. Dodi left his fiancée and joined Diana and her sons on the newly purchased $30 million yacht, the Jonicle. When Hasnat and Diana finally spoke again toward the end of July, something had fundamentally shifted. When you know someone very well, you know when something is not right, and that is exactly how I felt when I spoke to her. Hasnat said. Diana had secretly flown to Paris with Dodi for a weekend, though she denied anything was wrong, blaming poor phone reception. They met in Battersea Park shortly after. She was not her normal self, and she kept looking at her mobile phone. Hasnat recalled. He told her he thought she had met someone else, someone connected to Al Fayed. She denied it. The next day, they met again at Kensington Palace. That's when Diana ended their relationship. At the end of our meeting in Battersea Park, we arranged to see each other again the following day at Kensington Palace. It was at that second meeting that Diana told me that it was all over between us. Hasnat told police. His response was striking. I remember saying to her at the time, "You are dead," meaning her reputation was dead. I said this because I was sure there was someone from Mohammed Al Fayed's group, and that was how I felt about anyone involved with him. Now here's where the story gets complicated, because who actually ended the relationship depends on whose account you believe. Hasnat told police that Diana ended it, suggesting she realized Dodi could give her things he couldn't: money, security, bodyguards. But Diana's closest friends tell a completely different story. They say Diana broke up with Hasnat out of frustration that he wouldn't marry her, but that she hadn't given up hope. She was trying to make him jealous, to force his hand, to make him realize what he was losing. And this is where Dodi Fayed enters the picture, not as Diana's true love, but as a rebound, a strategy, a way to make Hasnat jealous. On July 31st, just days after breaking up with Hasnat, Diana flew to Sardinia with Dodi for a 6-day cruise on the Jonical. Photos of them embracing were taken by Italian paparazzo Mario Brenna, who had reportedly been tipped off by Diana herself. Think about that. Diana herself may have arranged for those photos to be taken and published. Why? Because she wanted Hasnat to see them. She wanted him to understand that other men wanted her, that she was moving on, that if he didn't act soon, he would lose her forever. Rosa Monton, one of Diana's closest friends who went on a cruise with her in August 1997, said they talked far more about Hasnat than they did about Dodi. Diana told her the relationship with Hasnat was over, and that Dodi was going to give her a ring that was going firmly on my right hand, meaning not an engagement ring. Monton strongly believes to this day that the relationship with Dodi was designed to make Hasnat jealous. Lady Annabel Goldsmith, another close friend, testified at the British inquest into Diana's death that, in her opinion, Diana was still on the rebound from Hasnat Khan and was trying to make him jealous. Author Kate Snell, who extensively researched this period, is even more direct. She was not in love with Dodi. She was in love with Hasnat Khan. She wanted to get back to Kensington Palace. And she enjoyed being with Dodi, but when she got back home, Dodi would be a past chapter in her life. Diana's friends say that if Hasnat had called and proposed at any point that summer, Diana would have dropped everything and come running. That's how much she loved him. That's how completely her heart belonged to him, even as the world watched her seemingly fall in love with someone else. Even in those final weeks, Diana was still contacting Hasnat's family, still giving them the impression that she and Hasnat were together. She hadn't let go. She couldn't let go. On the night she flew to Paris for her final trip with Dodi, August 30th, 1997, Hasnat tried to reach her, but she had changed her phone number again, one of her regular security measures. He couldn't get through. The next night, Diana and Dodi died in that Paris tunnel, pursued by paparazzi in a crash that shocked the world. Hasnat Khan attended Diana's funeral wearing dark sunglasses, barely speaking to other guests, trying to hide his emotions. Because while the world mourned Diana and Dodi as a tragic couple, Hasnat was mourning the woman he loved, the relationship that never got its chance, the future they had talked about that would never happen. And he has spent every year since protecting her memory. In 2004, when British police investigating Diana's death interviewed Hasnat as part of their investigation, he spoke about their relationship in measured terms. I think that if Diana were alive today, we would have remained very good friends. Whatever she did and whomever she was with, he said. It is a huge loss when someone very close to you dies. I do not know what Diana was like in other relationships, but she protected me very well, not just from the media, but also from a lot of information. Perhaps she protected me because she thought we had a future together. And here's the thing that makes Hasnat Khan's story so remarkable. He has never sold it. Never. In the years since Diana's death, dozens of people in her orbit have written tell-all memoirs, given paid interviews, sold stories to tabloids for massive sums. James Hewitt, her former lover, has repeatedly tried to cash in on their affair, even attempting to sell her letters. But Hasnat has steadfastly refused all offers. He has given only a handful of brief interviews, and he regrets even those. When a 2013 film called Diana, starring Naomi Watts, attempted to dramatize his relationship with her, he said the movie was based on hypotheses and gossip and vowed never to watch it. He has turned down lucrative book deals and media appearances. Why? Because, as he told one interviewer, I'm loyal to her not because she was a celebrity, but because I'm loyal to all my friends. I'm like that. If I had said some things about her before 1997, she could have responded to them. But since she is not here, it would be very unfair to make a comment about her. Think about the profound decency in that statement. Hasnat Khan could have become rich beyond imagination by selling his story. He could have set the record straight about what really happened in Diana's final years. He could have countered Mohammed Al-Fayed's conspiracy theories about her being pregnant with Dodi's child, about her planning to marry Dodi, about all the false narratives that took hold after her death. But he chose silence. He chose loyalty. He chose to protect a woman he loved even after she was gone. Everybody sells me out, Diana had told a friend in the summer of 1997. Hasnat is the one person who will never sell me out. She was right. In 2021, when journalist Martin Bashir came under investigation for manipulating Diana into giving her infamous 1996 BBC interview through forged documents and lies, Hasnat spoke out. He said Diana's most attractive quality was her vulnerability, and that Bashir had picked on those vulnerabilities and exploited them. Even then, more than 2 decades after her death, Hasnat was still trying to protect Diana's reputation, still trying to present a fair picture of who she really was. Today, Hasnat Khan is living quietly in Essex, working as a cardiothoracic surgeon. He founded a hospital cardiac unit in his hometown in Pakistan that serves impoverished children. He married briefly in 2006 in an arranged marriage that ended after less than 2 years. Understandably, given that he was still being called to testify at Diana inquests and his past relationship dominated his life. He married again in 2017 to a woman named Somi Sohail. He continues to refuse interview requests. He lives a quiet, private life he always wanted, the life that was impossible when he was with Diana. And that's perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of this entire story. Diana and Hasnat loved each other deeply, genuinely, truly. Everyone who knew them confirms it. But their love was impossible, not because of who they were as people, but because of the circumstances surrounding them. Diana could never have the normal life she craved. Hasnat could never have the privacy he needed. The media would never have left them alone. The royal establishment would never have accepted a Muslim stepfather to the future king. Hasnat's traditional family would never have approved of a divorced Western princess. And the racism that would have followed any public relationship or marriage would have been relentless and cruel. So what was Dodi, really? He was a fantasy, a distraction, a brief moment of fun, and possibly a strategy to make Hasnat jealous. He was not the love of Diana's life. Despite what the photos suggested, despite what the tabloids sold, despite what the world believed, Diana's own friends have been remarkably consistent about this. She was not planning to marry Dodi. She was not pregnant with his child. She was still deeply in love with Hasnat Khan and hoping to reconcile with him. When you look at those famous photos of Diana and Dodi on the yacht, when you see them kissing, when you read the tabloid headlines about their whirlwind romance, remember what was really happening. Remember that Diana's heart was elsewhere. Remember that she was trying to create a reaction in someone who wasn't even there. Remember that the greatest love story of her life was playing out invisibly while the cameras captured something else entirely. There's a memorial to Diana and Dodi in the basement of Harrods department store. Side-by-side photos, golden interlocking Ds. The controversial engagement ring Dodi allegedly bought her, a preserved wine glass from their last evening together at the Ritz. Mohammed Al-Fayed created this shrine to his version of events, his insistence that his son and Diana were in love and planning marriage. But there is no monument to Diana and Hasnat, no shrine, no plaque, no official recognition of what was actually the most significant relationship of Diana's post-marriage life. Instead, their memorial exists in the silence Hasnat has maintained, in the dignity with which he has refused to exploit their relationship, in the loyalty he has shown to a woman who died more than 26 years ago. It exists in the testimony of Diana's closest friends, who are consistently, at great personal cost, told the truth about where her heart really was. It exists in letters Diana wrote to Hasnat's grandmother, in photos of her wearing Pakistani clothing to events, in the memories of hospital staff who watched her observe his surgeries, in the stories of them standing in line at jazz clubs and pubs, trying to have just a few moments of normalcy together. And it exists in the things Diana said to her friends in those final years. I'm no longer lonely. I know what love is now. I've met my Mr. Wonderful. He's drop-dead gorgeous. These weren't the words of someone infatuated with fame or money or yachts. These were the words of a woman who had finally, after all the disappointments and betrayals and false starts, found someone who made her feel genuinely loved for who she was, not what she represented. The tragedy isn't just that Diana died young. The tragedy is that she died before she had a chance to find happiness, to resolve her relationship with Hasnat one way or another, to either make it work or truly move on. The tragedy is that the world thinks her great love was a man she knew for weeks, when her real love was a man she knew for years. The tragedy is that history has been rewritten by conspiracy theories and tabloid narratives and shrine builders, when the truth is simultaneously simpler and more heartbreaking. Diana wanted what most of us want, to be loved for ourselves, not our titles or fame. She wanted normality, to stand in lines, to order drinks at a pub, to do grocery shopping, to have someone value their work more than her celebrity. She found that with Hasnat Khan. For 2 precious years, she had it. And then the impossibility of their situation, the weight of her fame, the pressures of their cultural differences, and her own impulsive decision to try to make him jealous all combined to end what might have been her chance at real happiness. Hasnat told police, "Perhaps she protected me because she thought we had a future together." That word, perhaps, contained so much pain, so much uncertainty, so much lost possibility. Did they have a future together? Could they have made it work? We'll never know, because Diana died before they had a chance to find out. What we do know is this. When Diana said, "I know what love is now at 36 years old," she was talking about Hasnat Khan. When her friends say she was madly in love, they mean Hasnat Khan. When her butler talks about her being on an emotional roller coaster, deliriously happy one moment and weeping the next, he's describing her relationship with Hasnat Khan, not Charles, not Dodi, not any of the other men whose names have been connected to hers. And when Hasnat Khan attended her funeral in dark glasses, barely able to contain his grief, he was mourning not just the woman he loved, but all the possibilities that died with her, the quiet life they might have had, the daughter she wanted to have with him, the normal moments they could have shared away from cameras and crowds, the future that was always just out of reach, always impossible, always one impossible decision away. The man Diana really loved wasn't a prince or a billionaire's son. He was a surgeon with modest pay, a small apartment, and a dedication to saving lives. He wore button-down shirts and had a small paunch. He liked jazz and Guinness. He worked 90-hour weeks. He valued his privacy more than her fame. And he loved her enough to never sell her story, never betray her confidence, never exploit what they had together. He loved her enough to protect her memory more than she could ever have protected their relationship in life. That's the real love story. That's the truth that the tabloids missed while they photographed Diana kissing someone else. That's the heartbreak that no memorial in Harrods will ever capture. Princess Diana's greatest love wasn't the fairy tale prince she married or the playboy she died next to. It was a quiet doctor who held hearts in his hands, who barely noticed her when they first met, who gave her a glimpse of the normal life she desperately craved but could never truly have. And it's the love story that should have been told all along.